Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. 100 days in the Trump presidency, the U.S. economy is now shrinking for the first time in years, and it's all Donald Trump's fault. That may sound overly simplistic or unfair, but in this case, it's just really true, much truer than it usually is with presidents. Remember where we were before all this, right? The last administration, President Joe Biden, had to deal with this enormous set of challenges. Supply disruption that came out of the wake of COVID, and then inflation and the war in Ukraine, which spiked oil prices, and they managed to steer through the whole thing. Inflation came down as wages stayed high and unemployment neared record lows. They ended up with this kind of Goldilocks, not too hot, not too cool economy, a very difficult trick to pull off. It never went into recession, something so many people on TV kept saying was coming right around the corner over and over and over. And the upshot of all this was that Joe Biden handed Donald Trump an American economy that had gone through unbelievable turmoil and had emerged as the global growth leader. Donald Trump took office on January 20th with yet another sweet inheritance.
Honestly, Trump is inheriting a strong economy.
It's not like, a President Trump comes in and has to rebuild a broken down economy in his own way.
The setup's great, right? I mean, Trump is inheriting an economy, both a market economy, so the Wall Street economy looks good. Obviously, we're talking everything's up. The Main Street economy looks good.
Stay the course, folks. We're going to have the best economy of any industrialized country.
If it were a movie, this Economist magazine cover from last October would have been the kind of movie poster. America's economy, the envy of the world. And again, all Donald Trump had to do was just not screw it up. But he's really, really intent on screwing it up. So today, we got this big flashing warning sign, which is that the American economy contracted, meaning it shrank. The nation's GDP, all the goods and services we all produce, the total value of the economy, it shrank in the first quarter of this year by 0.3%. Now, I should say, it contracted for somewhat weird reasons in terms of the technical measures of how this happens, how GDP accounting works, right? A huge part of driving this contraction number was that Americans actually massively increased, counterintuitively, our imports from other countries. Our trade deficits went up because, why? Well, because everyone's scared of higher costs and emptier shelves from the tariffs. Okay, but again, that's not some act of God. It's not a pandemic. People are behaving that way because Donald Trump has started this wildly destructive trade war, which is likely to continue to cost enormous amounts of growth and jack up prices on all imported goods and possibly pitch the economy fully into a recession. A new worry is that Trump's import tax will be a nightmare for Christmas. That's because supply chains take a very long time to materialize. Retailers are even ordering ahead for the Christmas season. And toy makers and retailers are now pausing orders for the winter holidays. 90% of America's Christmas goods come from, yes, you guessed it, China. Barbie dolls, things like that, China. And if you're waiting for jolly old St. Trump to save Christmas, listen to this.
Mr. President, when will you speak to President Xi of China?
That'll happen. I mean, look, right now, and I told you before, they're having tremendous difficulty because their factories are not doing business. They made $1 trillion with Biden, $1 trillion, even $1.1 trillion with Biden selling us stuff. Much of it we don't need. Somebody said, oh, the shelves are going to be open. Well, maybe the children will have 2 dolls instead of 30 dolls, and maybe the 2 dolls will cost a couple of bucks more than they would normally. But we're not talking about something that we have to go out of our way.
Oh, the golden toilet guy is now preaching minimalism? Who needs all this stuff? Really? Imagine if that had been Donald Trump's 2024 campaign message. You already have too much crap, you spoiled brats. You and your kids are going to have to make do with less, and the less stuff is going to be more expensive. Every economic expert and CEO has been warning him for months that this would happen, but he's not listening to them because he's listening to himself and his own experts like Peter Navarro.
When you strip out inventories and the negative effects of the surge in imports because of the tariffs, you had 3% growth. So we really like where we're at now.
Yes, it's true. If not for the tariffs, it would be great because you'd basically have the Biden economy that Trump inherited. The Wall Street Journal reports instead that the Dow is now headed for its worst April since Herbert Hoover in 1932, the height of the Great Depression. That the S&P 500's performance since Inauguration Day is now the worst for any president up to this point in data going back to 1928. Of course, Trump's spin is not a new one. Blame Joe Biden.
I don't view the stock market as the end all. It's an indicator. But what the stock market really tells you, and when you look at the stock market in this case, is it says how bad a situation we inherited. This was a quarter that we looked at today, and we took all of us together. We came in on January 20th. So this is Biden. And you could even say the next quarter is sort of Biden because it doesn't just happen on a daily or an hourly basis.
Okay, this quarter, maybe the next quarter or two, that'll be Biden. Although if there's growth next quarter, I bet you it won't be Biden. It's so strange how the stock market under President Trump is really Joe Biden's, while the stock market under Joe Biden was somehow Trump's.
The Biden team can say, well, if things are so bad, how come the stock market's on a roll?
Because they think I'm going to be elected.
That you think the stock market's rallying because people think you're going to be elected?
Yeah. Between inflation and the horrible economy, and the only reason, by the way, the stock market goes up is that I'm leading in all the polls. If I weren't leading, the stock market would be way down. You know, a lot of people say the only reason the stock market's high is everyone thinks I'm going to win the election. I believe that's true. I don't want to say this. It's too braggadocious, but we'll say it anyway. The Trump effect. It's you. You're the effect. Since the election, the stock market has surged.
So credit where credit's due. This is Donald Trump's economy now. It really is his. He truly owns it. The stock market went down because of what he did. Again, this is genuinely pretty rare for presidents, right? The presidents get praise or blame for the economy, but they don't affect it in the tangible and immediate way that Donald Trump has done so. Economic growth in America is now negative because of solely what Donald Trump and Donald Trump alone did. Not even anything that Congress did, because he did it unilaterally. And all he had to do was nothing. Just build on the economy he had inherited. And he chose to squander it instead.